And we are live here on the PHU Dynasty podcast with an electrifying, just phenomenal guest here. And this is a very anticipated episode. People have been waiting for this for a very long time. And by people, I mean 7 to 8 other people in our league. not people in general, but just people that just want to hear what this guy has to say. His name is Alex Morales. He's the GM of the London Silly Nannies, arguably the most controversial team in the entire league. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. After that intro, I feel even better now. Been wanting to do this for a while. You know, Vince and I had even talked about breaking off and doing our own podcast just to spite you guys, but you guys have been doing great work. So, I wanted to join the party what you guys have going on here. You guys are doing great work. So I'm eager to get my first time in here with all y'all. So.
I mean, as much as I would love a rival podcast, I put a lot of work into this. So, if we could just have one and you can just hop on whenever y'all want, that'd be great. I'd appreciate that. So today we're going to be talking about Dan Schwartz, the GM of the Philadelphia Lampposts, and his team. It's going to be a tough one today because a lot of times we try to find things wrong and find the holes. Like we don't really talk about how good players are on this podcast. We like to find the holes and then try to just shit on the holes. So it's basically an Odell Beckham situation where we're just looking for the number 2 all day long. So let's see today if we can find some good things and some bad things to talk about Dan's team, and we can kind of talk about it in review from last season. He had a little bit of a disappointing finish to what was an excellent season, but just fell short in the playoffs. You have to believe this is another opportunity for him to win a championship this year, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He came in strong with, 10 wins, 11 wins for the season, and it looked like that train was just going to keep going, and then he just decided to get off right before the last stop, and it was unfortunate, but, those things happen in fantasy playoffs, and I don't remember, was it you or is it Sean that played him?
I think I went through Scavelli, so I want to say it was Sean that went through him.
Yeah, maybe. Sean and his ragtag of misfits, with Mr. Jonathan Taylor leading the way, and yeah, he got past him, and then Sean decided to get off at that last stop as well. So great finish for you, but not great for Dan. But he's been doing this. He's been doing this for a while now, where he just keeps getting in that playoff hunt, but can't seem to pull it off most years. And hopefully this year will be different for him, but we'll see.
Yeah, I do agree. I feel like he's going to be right in the mix again this year. It's just going to be a matter of if he can get hot at the right time. And that's usually how it goes in our league, though. Yes, you can have the best roster, but if you're not hot at the right times, it may not work out. So also, I will say before we go on with the Dan talk, we didn't really tease it in the intro, but Alex Morales is going to be having a State of the Union at the end of this podcast after we're done with the Dan team review, where we're going to go through a few different Q&A sessions here. We got some questions for him, and then he's also going to have an opening address to the league. So just tune in for that. Stick around. We're trying to make sure that y'all don't just skip ahead to make you guys. We're trying to make sure you guys watch the whole rest of this podcast. So we're just doing a little PR work here while we're at it. So tune in for that a little bit later. I'm sure that's what a lot of you are here for. So let's get started with this team review. So we're going to start with the position groups for Dan, and we're going to start with quarterback, it's an interesting group because there's a lot of moving parts on this, or a lot of moving parts in this group in recent history here. So, we could start kind of right up at the top there with Josh Allen. As a Bills fan, and you're a Bills fan too. We're probably the 2 biggest Bills fans
in the closet Bills
outside
fans,
of Vince. Yes. But we saw Josh Allen in the flesh. And I'll tell you, when I saw him in the flesh, I didn't believe, and I was not expecting great things out of Josh Allen. But last year, he proved me wrong. I would argue at this point, he's a top 5 dynasty quarterback. Would you agree?
Yeah, before this draft, yeah, it's pretty easy to say. He's young. He's moved the chains with his legs. He's got the weapons. Everyone was questioning, what he was going to do in the passing game, and he got Stephon Diggs. He got his number 1, and he showed everyone what he could do. And it's been fun to watch him this last season. So looking to see if he can build on that this year. Actually, speaking of that draft, I remember when they made that pick, you were dying laughing, and we were just having a ball. We was in Dallas that year,
That was the
actually.
Dallas draft.
That
You're
was
right.
the Dallas draft,
Oh
and
shit.
we were just having a great old time. And yeah, the Bills finally made the right pick for a change. And um,
I didn't believe at the time. I thought Josh Allen was just going to be another bust, and it obviously hasn't gone that direction. But I would like to see him do it again. It's one thing to do it once. It could be a little fluky perhaps, but I want to see him do it again before I'm like truly 100% on board. Um, but I do think it's going to actually probably be an easier trip for him next year because I imagine they're going to add some sort of running back in the draft, make the uh, balance between pass and run a little bit better because that team didn't really have a running game last year. They kind of just flung it around. And I'd like to see what they can do with somebody maybe like a early round pick. Like, what if they get a Travis Etienne or Najee Harris or something like that? I mean, that would be very interesting for that offense, and I can't imagine it gets any worse for Josh Allen. Um,
no,
so, so it's looking good. So, I mean, QB definitely a QB1 for sure, and a great dynasty asset. Which brings us into Deshaun Watson,
oh yes,
which thank God that Dan had Josh Allen in the fold already. Because if he had just Deshaun, I mean, it would obviously Matt Stafford's very serviceable, but it's hard to look at Deshaun Watson very positively right now. I mean, especially as a dynasty asset.
yeah,
Yeah,
68 sexual assault allegations later, and it's not looking too good. But I could see why Dan. I thought about it. I was like, well, why isn't he trying to get rid of him? And I was like, well, maybe he doesn't want to do the Tyreek Hill situation where someone that we know got rid of him way a little too early and didn't pan out well. But I guess at that point you rather just take the loss if he doesn't end up coming back to the league versus you trading him and then like, oh well, all that was bullshit and he's back under center and he's throwing touchdowns. So I get it, which brings me to his draft picks later, which I'm excited to talk about. But yeah, it's not looking too good for Mr. Watson right now. We'll see what happens. He might get suspended. Who knows? Just got to let it play it out until then, but we'll see.
yeah. His situation is just so murky right now. It's really hard to know what to do with the guy, and clearly I messed that up during my portion of dealing with this kind of thing. So, I mean, I've had a couple of guys like that. Now I had Darius Geis too, but his was a little more clear cut. Like you kind of knew that was over pretty fast, so I just let him go and just moved
Right.
on. But this one's tough because there's just so much unknown. So I do feel like the right move at this point is just to hold, because his values it literally. I mean, the only way his value gets worse is if he just goes away. Like at this point, so right now you just kind of hold and see. And he's already got Josh Allen, so you don't have to really worry about your quarterback position too much here. So
No.
um, that also brings us to Matt Stafford, who honestly gets an uptick for me. I mean, this offseason, I mean, the Lions are the Lions. We know what they are. And the Rams, he moves to an offense with McVay now. I mean, it looks good. It looks good for Stafford.
Yeah, this might be the outside of Calvin Johnson. It might be the best hole of weapons that he's had in his whole career. I would argue.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Between a running game with Cam Akers, the way he's looked towards the end of the season, you have Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, their group of tight ends. Like he's got the recipe for success. He's got to put together, and he's got to stay healthy. That's another thing
That's the biggest
we
thing.
forget about. He just gets hurt in these random games. He sometimes does more than he should, and ends up costing him a season because of it. So we'll see if he can put it all together now.
I've always felt he's been criminally underrated his whole career, but literally almost entirely because of the Lions being so bad. So, and completely incompetent at finding talent. So, that's a player that is a rock solid backup for sure. Like this is your guy. Like he might be the best backup in the league right now in our dynasty league as far as like a QB 1-2 fringe kind of guy. Like I love having Matt Stafford as your number 2 quote. Assuming that Watson's not playing, of course.
Right, and then if he does, then he's just number 3, and that's perfect. Like you don't ever have to worry about your quarterback situation ever. or at least for
No,
the next few years. So he's in good shape. He's in
yeah.
good shape.
And then Roethlisberger, I mean, we kind of know he's at the end of his career here. He's serviceable some weeks, other weeks he's dog crap. I mean, he's just kind of all over the map. Um, that at that point though, like Roethlisberger, maybe you can flip him to another team that kind of needs a quarterback. I mean, assuming that um, that you got Watson playing too, because I don't know if I'd want to go into a season with just two quarterbacks. I'd like to have a third if I can, but um, but yeah, like looking at this roster, it feels like Roethlisberger and or Stafford might be expendable, but that's kind of up for Dan. Dan doesn't need a whole lot of stuff, so he could just hold on to what he's got and be fine too. So I'd be interested to see what he does with this room. So
Absolutely.
what kind of grade are you giving this group? I mean, I think I know what I'm going to give it, but I'll let you start.
I mean, the Deshaun Watson situation makes it a little murky, but even let's just assume he's not in the picture for a second, and having Stafford as a backup in a really good situation now for the first time, and then Josh Allen, who is going to get you all kind of fantasy points, even if he has a shitty throwing day, he's still going to get you points on the ground. You have to give it an A. I don't see how you
Yeah,
don't.
it's an A right now for me, and then if Watson plays, it's an A plus. Like
Yep.
it's the best quarterback situation by far. So, um, so yeah, so I mean, this is a great group. There's not a whole lot to crap on here. So let's move forward to the running backs. This is another just interesting group here. There's so much talent and there's so much youth, which is just something that you don't see a lot, especially in running back rooms. It's always kind of a mixture of just some like old slow hags that just kind of like either just the kind of at the back end of their career mixed with a couple of young guys with upside, but this is just like solid as hell across the board. So started off with Dalvin Cook. I mean, he's good.
Yeah,
He's good.
he's
He's a
Dalvin Cook.
first round pick in dynasty startups. I think he's like 25, 20, 24, 25, 26. Like he's not that old. He's still definitely got a couple of years to go at least
Yeah.
before he starts slowing down.
And his knock at the beginning was, could he stay healthy? He was getting hurt a lot, and the last couple of years he's finally put it together. He's been staying on the field, and it hasn't been necessarily equating to success for the Vikings, as a team, barely missing the playoffs, things like that. But yeah, he's been solid. You can't knock what you have a Cook right there as your RB1 for sure.
Yeah, I don't think we need to talk too much more about him. Let's go to Dobbins because he's more of an interesting case study because it's just we don't really know what the full potential of Dobbins is. I think we all agree that he's pretty good. It's just a matter of how many touches is he going to get. Now that Ingram's gone, he's going to get more touches. Gus Bus is still there though, and Gus Bus is one of those underrated players in the league, in my opinion. So, how many carries would you expect him to get a game, J.K. Dobbins, next year?
Strictly carries.
Or how about this? Let's change up the touches because that's
touches?
what really matters.
Right. Because that's where he makes his money. I feel like in the passing game, but he can do either or. Say 12 to 15. I think it's pretty split down the middle. I know this offseason, I heard maybe a week ago that Greg Roman was really going to open up that playbook now. What that entails is more passing, or if they're going to go back to what their bread and butter was 2 years ago, where they're going to be the most rushing attempts in the league as a team. We'll wait and see. But I think either way, it spells in Dobbins' favor. So it should be exciting to watch this coming season for sure.
Yeah, I think anywhere between like 15. I mean, if they run the ball as much as I think they're going to run the ball, then 15, 20. I mean, touches a game is pretty doable. And I also think too that, I mean, he's just scratching the surface of his potential. So, I mean, who knows? He could end up being in that Dalvin Cook category at some point in the near future. And if that's the case, then I'm really scared of Dan's team. So I don't know how much I would love that, but that's what I could definitely see it happening. He's a rock solid RB2 at minimum this year. And then Antonio Gibson, another guy that broke out for him last year, rookie draft pick last year too. I mean, looked awesome at times last year. I had him in redraft. He made me very happy a couple different weeks. I'm intrigued to see what they do with the draft this year. Not the formerly known name, but the Washington football team. I'm intrigued to
Yes.
see what they do in the draft because I just don't know if they. I mean, he played good enough that I would think he'd be the starter again next year, but I wouldn't be totally shocked if they like brought in somebody and split touches. I would not be completely surprised by that. Would you?
Well, I look back at Ron Rivera's recent coaching decisions, and when he had Christian McCaffrey, he was running that kid into the ground. It didn't matter who else they had at running back; he was just giving him all the touches he could
That is
possibly
true.
handle. There's no reason for me to think that he wouldn't mind doing that again. I'm sure they might draft somebody, but any higher than the fourth round would be a little bit shocked to me. I think they have something decent with Gibson. Now, granted, he didn't have a great performance in the playoffs. I think he had 35 total yards in that game against Tampa Bay. But of course, the Washington football team, the offense was great to begin with. So
I
it was
mean,
just
they also had Taylor Heineke at quarterback that game too, so it's hard to
right.
really judge the whole offense
Yeah,
there.
that's
I
true.
I,
Very
I
fair.
like Gibson a lot as a player. I really actually didn't think he was going to do a whole lot this year. I mean, I'm as a rookie, I wasn't super high on him. I actually didn't even know if he was going to be a running back or not. He's kind of one of those hybrid running back receiver type of deals, but that actually really works if you can do both things well, which I wasn't sure if he could do that at the NFL's level. So the fact that he can run and catch well, and he is somewhat of a pass protector. I mean, that dude was on the field all the time. And the only time he lost touches was to J.D. Mashitzik, and literally the most overrated player in the league. So I don't know like how if he's going to be able to keep every touch that he got from last year. So if he keeps all those touches, then great. It's kind of in the same boat as like a James Robinson. Like if Robinson keeps all of his touches, I can't say anything too bad about him. Same thing with
No,
Gibson. I mean, if they keeps all of his touches, he should be great too. So I mean, as your third running back, it's hard to find people in this league that have a good third running back anyway. So Gibson is a great bet to move forward. I can't argue too much with that as your third back at all. So Kenyon Drake, kind of a value hit here from last year for sure. What are your thoughts on Kenyon Drake now that he's in the biggest Vegas Raiders?
yeah, I don't know what anything that the Raiders are doing at this point. I was excited about,
Sean and
who
I
they
don't either.
drafted.
Don't worry. We have no idea.
That's the biggest mystery of 2020, 21, 22. We don't know what they're doing. They drafted 3 wide receivers. Well, they converted one and got rid of them eventually. But granted, with COVID, some of the rookie wide receivers had more struggles than others that were more pro ready, which was we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I don't know. Everything from getting rid of some offensive linemen this recent offseason to adding Kenyon Drake. I'm assuming they want to play fast. They want their linemen to be fast. They want them to be running around all over the place. And, they got Drake for that reason. I guess they don't feel Jacobs is the best option in the passing game. He's serviceable, but I don't know if he's Kenny Drake level. So they're like, you know what? Let's just grab him. Let's just run all over the place. Just make teams, stay up late at night, trying to figure out what they're going to do to us on defense. And then we're just going to just run amok. So hopefully it works for them, but we don't know.
It's so funny that you're like, they're going to try to play fast, which I agree that I think that's what they're trying to do. But then they like re-sign like a 38-year-old Richie Incognito and they get rid of everybody else. I think they re-signed him, which is like, what do you guys even do? I just don't even know. Like
I think he's
they
there
had
for coaching support.
there was quite literally like talks on Twitter and around the league that they had the best like offensive line in the league like 2 years ago, like right up there with the Cowboys at the time, because they had like Gabe Jackson, Donald Penn, who was solid, Rodney Hudson, who was awesome. Like they had all these great players. And then now they're just like all gone. And I just don't understand what they're doing. Like, I really don't know. And the Kenyon Drake signing is just so, I mean, they really didn't have a second running back. So I totally understand like the idea of getting somebody to spell Jacobs. Cause last year was like Jalen Richard and like DeAndre Washington. They're all just trash.
Right.
But like Kenyon Drake, like they spent so much money just to get him as a backup. Like I think it was a bigger contract than I like that I was expecting. We'll put it that way. And now you got to basically split touches, and I'm sure I'm sure our good friend Justin took a little gasp when he saw that Kenyon Drake was coming because his Josh Jacobs shares took a little dive. So, I mean, it's a weird signing, and I think it's still a good signing for the lamppost here because at least they paid him enough money they can't not give him touches. So he's gonna
Right.
touch the ball. Kenyon Drake could have easily just faded out into oblivion, and nobody would have remembered. Like I could have easily seen that. So this is at least a chance for him to keep getting touches. And then to fill his spot, little news break is the James Conner signs with the Cardinals. So that's like an interesting little nugget for Vince, who has James Conner, who is just hoping for the best possible situation. I do feel like that's a good situation for James Conner. Like at least to maybe get 50 to 60% of the touches there with Chase Edmonds. I mean, it could be worse.
Yeah, he did okay with himself going to Arizona. I've never been a huge James Conner fan. I love his story. Don't get me wrong, but to me he just seems like another guy. And maybe he looked worse just with the he loved the Raiders, Alex. He loved the barbecues.
Just had to throw
I
that in there.
yeah, but yeah, we'll see what happens with Connor. I'm sure he'll be serviceable. Flex running back, I'd say his best case. I don't.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple of running back 2 performances, but nothing I'm going to be too excited about.
Did you see the terms of his contract, by the way? It was so sad. Like, because running backs have no market anyway. Like, but this is literally no market. Like, he got like $1 million and then $500,000 guaranteed. I was like, wow, that's just unreal.
Yeah, just another guy. Yeah, that's exactly what you pay.
We got a comment in here. This is Vince's username for the record. He says, "I do like the James Conner signing," which, I mean, it's way better than him going to a team that like already has somebody established. Like if he imagine if he signed with like the Seahawks or something, and then he's got to like split with like Carson and like Rashad Penny, and like it's like that. You just don't want that shit. Like,
yeah. Well, I can see the Swallows, giving support to James Conner. Yeah, he said the same thing about him last year when I told him he needed to dump him immediately, and he didn't listen. And now he's stuck with him with the.
He's gonna have to ride that train until it falls off the tracks
for $500,000, guaranteed.
Nelson Aglar got more money than Drake and Conner combined. Dude, the Raiders, man. I just don't know what they're doing. Anyway, we're moving on from Kenyon Drake talk. That was way too much talk for Kenyon Drake. So we're moving on. Speaking of guys that don't deserve a lot of talk, Rex Burkhead, Boston Scott, and Devontae Freeman. This trio, they're just depth guys. They're not dynasty assets. You just kind of plug and play them whenever you can, I guess, but whenever you need to.
Burkhead, at least, I will say that I do thank him for one of my 2 victories last season. I played Sean, and he scored 3 touchdowns, and it was an amazing
just one
start.
Of those classics. One of those Alex for Alex, just chuck him in there. We'll see what happens. 3 touchdowns. You love to see that. That is a classic Alex player.
Love it.
All right, so what are we giving this running back room as a grade?
Young running backs, established running backs. It's hard to, another A. You can't. And the draft, his draft last year was probably the best draft any of us has ever had in one season. So
yeah, we'll definitely talk about that later. But I would have a hard time not giving this an A either. All these guys are going to get touches. At least the top 4 are all going to get touches in some way or another, and the top 3 are established as basically workhorse backs at this point. They're all going to be the number 1s for their teams. So you love to see that, and they're all, assuming that Cook is still under 26 or 25, like they're all super young. So that's great. This one another reason why this team is one of the best for sure. So let's go to the receivers. And if you thought this was good, wait till you see this group, because I'm getting all worked up looking at it. Oh god, spooky ghost. Yeah, this is outrageous. This is a testament to how good Dustin's been drafting recently. Obviously DK Metcalf, huge draft pick for him. He's a beast. He's the reincarnate of Julio. Like he's just this giant physical guy that just he's like a Megatron type, and that's exactly what everybody wants every single year when you go into these drafts. So I mean, it's hard to argue anything with Metcalf. He's super young, fast, big, plays with a great quarterback. He's a number one. We'll move on from him just because we already know he's good. Julio Jones, though. Julio Jones is interesting because I feel like this is a guy that he could move on from if he really wanted to. Saying that it's the end of his career, he's also got two bona fide starters right behind him, in Keenan Allen and Justin Jefferson. Like maybe this is a guy that could be on the block, who knows? But if he keeps him, Julio Jones is a threat to go for 1,200 yards and 6-7 touchdowns every single year. So like, I think Jones is just one of those freaks of nature, basically, that can play until he's 40 if he really wanted to. He does get banged up a lot, which is the most annoying thing. I owned him in redraft like 2 years ago, and it was just like, holy shit, this is brutal. But at the same time, he goes off for like 170, and you're like, holy shit, this guy's still ridiculous. So he's kind of one of those guys I don't feel like it's necessary for his team, but like if he keeps him, it's great too. So what are your thoughts on Julio heading in? I think he's going to be 32 this year or something like that.
Yeah, he still has a couple of years left in the tank. Obviously with the emergence of Calvin Ridley, cuts into his target share a little bit, I would say. And we don't know what the Falcons are going to do with that number 4 pick. There's been some rumors with Kyle Pitts, and
dude, what better guy for Pitts to learn from than Julio, dude? Like, oh my god, that'd be sick. We got a comment here from James talking about some James Conner talk. Blames James Conner for the home and finish in redraft. Fucking tell me how you really feel, brother.
I think you traded for him, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember what happened.
Yeah, it was like Todd Gurley for James Conner and some other asshat. And
that was like, wasn't that like right before the season started?
Yeah, it was him and Scavelli, I believe, who made that trade.
Dude, just don't make trades with Scavelli. Stop doing it, people. Stop doing it. I gotta talk to myself when I do this shit, because like I trade with Scavelli all the time, and I don't feel like I ever really win. I think last year I won because I won the championship, but like I don't win the championship without Chubb and Brady. But like I still don't feel great about that trade. Like looking back at it, I'm like, there's a lot of guys I gave up for that.
Yeah, and you were missing Chubb for the chunk of that season.
I didn't even have half the season. I didn't even have him.
If you didn't pick up James Robinson at the beginning of last year, you may not even have the wins to get into the playoffs, because I think you were like you snuck in, if I'm not mistaken. What were you, 5th, 6th seed? I
was 6th seed, and I started the season 1-4 or 5, and yeah, I was honestly a big reason I was 1-4 and 5 is because Chubb was hurt. So
yeah, and if Robson's not there, you missed the playoffs, and
no chance.
Yeah,
no chance.
And
yeah, now things just happen, I guess. But I would advise against trading with Scavelli if you can.
Yes, absolutely.
Just because, like, you can go back in history, and it's just incredible to see some of the trades he's made. That being said, he's one of the most active traders in the league. So, like, I'm not telling you not to trade with him. I'm just saying if you want to like win,
it's easy to deal with. He doesn't.
He doesn't fight back.
No,
he gives you what you want, and half the time it's because he's already knows he's going to win no matter what anyway. So that's just part of the deal. We'll keep moving here. Keenan Allen gets. It was kind of interesting because I was a little more down on Allen heading into last year because I didn't know how Herbert was going to play.
Right.
Herbert blows it up. Keenan Allen is literally his blankie, if you will, and they're great. They're both great. And Keenan Allen has always been one of my favorite players in the league. So I'm still super high on Allen moving into this year. He's still young as shit too. So yeah, he's going to be at least a wide receiver 2. It's good there.
He could probably be wide receiver 1 in PPR, given that he's probably going to see a ton of targets. Hunter Henry's gone. The Mike Williams experiment, we keep waiting to see what's going to happen with that. We don't know. They could draft a wide receiver. I've been hearing talks about that, but there's no reason to believe that Keenan Allen's not going to get 125 targets easy.
Yeah, I mean he's going to get targets. I mean he's going to be a fantasy stud for sure. And then the lore and the story of Justin Jefferson from last year. I mean, just the first round skippage that he got from everyone in our league. It goes, I believe he went 2-1 or 2-2, something like that. Just unreal value for Justin, or for Dust. Not Jesus Christ. keep thinking of Dustin and Justin because there's so many different Austins to deal with right now. So I'm struggling. That being said, Dan found the value at the right time, picked the right guy clearly, and now he has like a wide receiver one basically for the foreseeable future in Dynasty. I mean, what a sick selection to add him into this group that's already good. I mean, unreal.
Yeah, he nailed it. He really did. Going into the draft process, at least I did, and I'm sure most of you knew that he was the most NFL ready wide receiver of the bunch, and that's what I'd heard a lot. He did everything well, but he did nothing spectacular, which some of the other guys like CeeDee Lamb did this, blah 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 blah. But he got the opportunity and he ran with it, and it showed how well he played, and even despite Jamar Chase having better numbers, Jefferson might have been the better player, honestly. And you saw it this last season, and it's hard to imagine that we're not going to continue to see it. I don't know if he's going to have quite those many years going forward. I'm a little skeptical on him hitting those numbers again personally, but he's going to be wide receiver one, it looks like, assuming the Vikings continue to chuck the ball the way they did.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. He did it all with like Kirk Cousins. I mean, it's not like Cousins isn't a bad quarterback, but he's not like somebody that you would expect to distribute that kind of numbers to. I think it's a little bit more towards also the fact that when they do throw the ball, they really kind of only have two options. It's him and Thielen. I mean, they don't really have that third player that's kind of like a slot guy or like a good tight end. They've kind of just been. It's been Thielen, it's been Jefferson, and then like Cook out of the backfield because Irv Smith didn't really do much last year. Could take a big step this year. Mm-hmm. Rudolph was not a pass catcher at this point in his career. Chad Beebe, Olabisi Johnson. Who else they got on that team?
Olong Johnson.
Olong Johnson, exactly. They just don't have anybody that's like super notable. So I would be interested. I feel like they are going to add a receiver in this draft just as like an insurance policy for one of the other, the big outside guys. That being said, Justin Jefferson, he's as good of a dynasty wide receiver as you could ask for at this point.
Yeah, top 5 easy.
If you're doing a startup draft, like, do you take him probably in the second round of a startup?
I don't know. Well, I know this
like a super flex,
Oh, super flex, second round. If it's one QB
startup, back end one. Yeah. He was that good last year. It's hard to imagine talking about a rookie like that, but he was that good. All right, enough of the good player talk. Cole Beasley had a great year last year for a little slot guy. He does what he does. He's not much of a standard league superstar by any means, but he's a great fun. I think he's actually a phenomenal depth player. Just like one of those guys that. I mean, if he was like somebody that if I was a team that needed depth receiving, I'd be like trying to acquire this guy just because I know he's going to get, a good 5 to 6 catches a game. He'll put up your 50 yards or so and just be dead steady the whole year. And that's an awesome thing to have. Because in our league, we need depth spots. We need flex spots. And this is a kind of a guy that actually helps you win games. So, I don't think it's going to be anything crazy about, like his future, but he's already kind of older. But he's fine. I mean, I don't think the addition of, was it Emmanuel Sanders? I don't think that affects Cole Beasley's stock at all, really.
No, I think he'll be just fine. He's one of those guys who just puts on his work boots, gets his hard hat on, his lunch pail, and just goes to work.
He goes to
perfect guy to.
He's a gym rat.
Yeah, those bye-week blues. He's like the perfect guy to have. So,
big time gym rat. Then we got T.Y. Hilton, who I believe re-signed with the Colts the other day.
Yes.
I mean, I could still see him being, somewhat of a usable player. I mean, he at this point, it's hard to tell if he's really going to have much success at this point moving forward. But that team isn't as deep at receiver as people kind of think they are, and he's still definitely going to be a factor. I think it's going to be him, Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell if he comes back healthy. Yeah, I imagine they're going to add another one too still. So I think it's gonna be kind of like a dogfight for targets in that offense, and then that, of course, all of that is kind of generated based on what Wentz does. Is Wentz any good, basically?
Yeah, it can't be any worse than last season for Hilton. Like for what I've seen, Wentz certainly has the capability to hit him in stride. Where Philip Rivers this last season, good luck getting it over 20 at this point. He wasn't throwing the deep ball if he didn't have to. He's probably ready to. He probably felt the tears in his arm already every throw he took. So he's like, nah, no
He's
thanks.
like, I
No
can't do
thanks,
this.
boss.
He's not going to be able to throw his clipboard at high school football games when he's coaching his 11,000 kids or whatever. I don't know, dude. He's just something else. That guy.
Love him.
Love that guy. I fucking love Phillip Rivers. He's like, dude, I wish he won a title. He deserved one. Anywho, moving along here to Hunter Renfro. I mean, he's like a Cole Beasley type, just worse. Poor man's Cole Beasley, maybe. Not a whole lot to talk about in fantasy, really. He's just solid, I guess. But
yeah.
Nelson Aglar goes to the Patriots.
Yes.
Right? Yep. I mean, the Patriots have no idea what they're doing with receivers most of the time.
I'm not excited for it.
I don't feel good about it, but he's also going to get targets probably. So, I mean, could be worse. I mean, he could have gotten to a team like the Falcons or some shit and then just kind of get buried on the depth chart. So at least like with his contract and the team he's going to, I feel like at least there's some targets to be had. So that's kind of nice. But I've never liked Aglar as a player. So don't feel great about that.
Yeah, if Dan's starting him, then he's in big trouble. So even on bye weeks,
if he's starting him, there's some serious shit going on his team. There's a lot of injuries.
we don't know what's happening.
We got big problems if that's the case. And then you got just criminally underrated player every year, Jameson Crowder. I mean, this guy's a good football player. Like, he's not the best fantasy asset, but this guy, all he does is get open and catch passes. And I couldn't even believe that the Washington football team let him get away in free agency. I know he asked for like more money probably than what they wanted to pay him, but like they didn't have anything to begin with. So it's like, how did you not re-sign this guy? Crowder's a solid player, but I mean, I guess it's getting a little more literally, no pun intended, crowded up in the New York Jets land up there, because you got Corey Davis now, you got Denzel Mims. Mimsy. We'll talk about him later. And then they also added a couple of different tight end guys. They still have Herndon. So I don't know how much is going to be there for Crowder at this point in his career, but he's still good. He's a good football player, good depth guy.
Yeah, he's someone you don't want to drop, but you're not necessarily going your way to start him either, unless you're hurting for whatever reason.
He's also kind of in that Cole Beasley grouping of players where it's just nice to have guys. Demarcus Robinson, Humphreys, Reynolds, and Boykin, I'm just not going to do too much on them because I think all those guys are just like waiver wire fodder kind of guys. Just nothing super exciting. I think Reynolds. Where did Reynolds sign?
I know I saw it the other day.
I thought it was like somewhat interesting. Let me look at it real quick.
Titans? No.
That might be it. Hold on.
That feels like a Titans signing.
Hold the damn phone, because that does sound like a Titans signing, though. That's accurate. I feel like he's a guy that he's not bad, but he's not good either. But like if he had the right situation, he actually might be fantasy relevant.
We might do something.
Let's see here. Joshua Reynolds, did he finish? I remember where he went to college. He's only 26, and he signed a deal with the Titans. Look at you. Oh. This guy just knows his shit.
Listening to many podcasts, that's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, as of right now, he's the wide receiver 2 on that team. Yeah. Who else is there? There's nobody. They legit, dude, they had they had some guys at the end of the year that they were playing that I had no clue who they were at receiver. Like, I was like, who is this guy? There's this one guy he had one of those like hyphenated last names. I was like, oh, this guy's interesting just because of his name. But I just didn't even know anything about those guys. So I feel like the Titans are primed to take a receiver in the draft. So like, he can pump down again. So, but like as of right now, could be worse. So I have to give this group an A+. Like,
A+. This is the best wide receiving group that you could possibly ask for in Dynasty.
I mean, youthful players. superstar veteran players, mid-tier players, depth players. This has everything. This is as good as it gets. So he also could do a lot with these guys too. I mean, if he wants to make some moves for other positions and try to just stack up and get more elite players, like he's got so many options. And truthfully, he could just sit there and do nothing and be totally set. I mean, this is a great situation for Dan.
Yep, for many years.
Yeah, it's looking good for at least a couple of years here. Tight ends, though, this might be the weakness of his team, depending on how you look at it. I mean, Gronk, he's the same age as Travis Kelce, which is weird to people, 31. And he finished tight end 8 last year from my base research that I did 20 minutes ago. And I mean, he took a while to get going this past season, but when he got going with Brady, it was like old times. It wasn't anything out of the normal for those guys. They were just hooking up for long touchdowns, and it looked like Patriots land again. So, I mean, I feel decent about him going into next year, but I also like have this like little inkling that maybe he's just not quite up to snuff still for Dynasty.
Yeah, he's going to be good for another year or two, I'd say. I think they were evolving him in the offense very slowly at the beginning of the season for Tampa.
He needed to get in
And
shape too.
right, yeah, he was wrestling other guys at
He
one
told
point
the
before
Bucs coaching staff that he was doing workouts and sent in videos from him in the same day, sending in different shirts. He was wearing different shirts and just took a different video and sent it in every day saying he ran 5 days in that week, but he did them all on Monday. Like, what a dick. Like, but I love it. I love the hustle. He just didn't give a shit. So like, I don't know. I feel like I need to see a fast start from him this year to believe that he's like still got it,
Right.
So we'll see. And
He
then
may never get the yards, but I think the touchdowns are still going to be there.
yeah,
I can't see
yeah,
why not.
he's gonna get red zone looks. They're not gonna not throw it to him in the red zone. So I mean, at worst, he's like a back end, probably tight end 1, fringe tight end 1. I mean, he was 8 last year, and he didn't do shit for the first 6 weeks. So
Right.
I mean, I can't imagine it gets a whole lot worse. Zack Ertz literally fell off the Eiffel Tower. Like he's like almost like useless at this point. He's not even on a team, or he's still on the Eagles, but he requested a trade, I think.
Right.
But he went from like, I looked at his numbers earlier too. He finished 7th, 5th, 5th, 35th this year, something like that. So just an absolute cliff.
Wow.
And he was like a consensus top 5 dynasty tight end all the way up until last year. He's 30 years old. I don't know what to do with Ertz at this point. You just hold and hope at this point, I guess. You can't even trade him now.
No.
So I mean, he's not even much of a backup at this point. So this is why I kind of feel like if any position on this team needs to be addressed, maybe tight end. Just because if Gronk kind of is a letdown, you don't have a whole lot of options here. Trey Burton's a free agent, literally not even on a team right now, and he's always been overrated anyway. And then Higbee is actually probably the most interesting name on this list because they did not re-sign Gerald Everett. And every time that Gerald Everett has not been on the field, Higbee's been great. So maybe he gets that chance to kind of be what he was at the end of 2019. Because I don't know if you remember, he had that run of just like 5 or 6 straight weeks where he was just a baller.
Yes.
And I don't know what happened. And then last year he didn't do anything again. So it's just, they might start to use Higbee more like how I think they should. And with Matt Stafford being there, there's a chance that he could kind of be that like Hawkinson kind of guy. I mean, there's hope for Higbee. There's some upside still there after all these years, but I don't know.
Well, I haven't really watched too many of the the Rams games last year, to be honest. Were they using him more as a blocker? Because I know their offensive line was struggling.
He's always been a good blocker. So that's like, he's always on the field. It's just a matter if they throw him the ball. I mean, like, because whenever Everett was on the field, it felt like they just never gave him any opportunities. So I'm intrigued to see how that offense uses him. And this is also another team. I wouldn't be like overly surprised if they drafted a tight end, just because like just to backfill roster spots. And I think they drafted this guy Bryson Hopkins a couple of years ago too.
Okay, I remember that name.
He hasn't done shit, but like they have a soul there. Anywho, this group kind of feels. I mean, it's hard to like compare to the other groups because they're so damn good, but this definitely feels like the worst group of the positions. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
what
so,
would you grade this?
uh, it's a tough one. I don't want to hit it. I don't want to hit him too hard because I mean Gronk's still okay. Let's take a C. C
Yeah, I
minus.
mean, I'd give him a C because I think Higbee's playable. Like you can throw him out there. I mean, assuming that Ertz either finds a new home or sticks around, like that's kind of. I mean, if he finds a new home and he's like the tight end one, then he could be valuable again. But I mean, right now it doesn't look good. And then Burton, I don't even put him on the board right now. So a C at best for me because I don't see any like we were talking about with other teams like Noah Fant. Like there's no like clear cut like oh this looks good. I don't see anybody like that on this team. So that brings me to another question: is this a Kyle Pitts landing spot?
I'm hearing
1.8.
I'm hearing stuff from different people
Oh,
who
from
I've had many
sources?
from many
Who are
discussions.
your sources?
Who are my yeah, there's a good to fair chance that Pitts does not get there at 1.8. He's gonna have to trade up
I
100%.
I would venture to say the same thing. I mean, I don't have any sources like you. I'm just a shitty commissioner, but I mean, what I do know is that he's good, and usually good players don't last. So, I'd be shocked if he made it to 1.8 at this point.
Yeah,
But
you will.
that's a conversation for another day. Let's talk about his draft capital since that was a nice little segue. He's still got all of his original picks, which is
Per usual. Yeah, that's just
pretty normal
Canadian
for Dan.
tradition.
It is a Canadian tradition. This is also something I actually reached out and just to see where Dan was at, and he didn't really seem to want to trade any of these picks. So I think he's going to
Never does.
stand pat and just see what happens in the draft. But he's also in one of those rare positions in the draft that literally, like, he could just—it's not rare, but like he just lets everything fall to him, and it usually works out for him. Especially last year. We could talk about his draft last year. Let's just talk
Yes.
about that as a whole. All right, first round.
Well,
J.K. Dobbins. Big hit, right? Good hit.
Oh yeah, yeah. So,
Second round, Justin Jefferson. Phenomenal hit.
mm-hmm.
Third round, Antonio Gibson. Gigantic hit.
Yes.
So you're just crushing all the way down the line. I mean, you can't ask for anything more from a draft. It might arguably be the best draft ever. I mean, as of right now, I feel like it doesn't get a whole lot better than that.
Yeah, I will say that I don't know how long he's been done with medical school now, but I feel like once he wrapped that up and got his feet wet as, being Dr. Dan, he now had more time to focus on fantasy football, and now he's crushing these drafts, and it's driving me nuts because it's like he put all that brain power into all those years of
No
studying
more
textbooks.
textbooks.
No more textbooks.
No more exam studies. All he's doing is watching game tape and film all day.
If that's the case, we're fucked. There's a good chance that we're.
This team's already good.
It's,
Like he doesn't. I'm scared. I'm just scared.
I'm terrified.
I'm fucking terrified. Anyway, yeah, his team's ridiculous. His draft capital looks good for this year. His drafting's ridiculous. I mean, he's probably the most feared player in the league for me. So, if I'm scared of anybody, I'm scared of Dan. So, enough of the Dan talk. Now it's time for the main event for the three of you that stuck around to listen to this.
All our fans.
All of our loyal fans. We love you. We're gonna do something different that we haven't really done on the podcast yet. Now we're gonna have a State of the Union with Alex Morales. He's been itching to give his opening statement on the state of the London Silly Nanny. So I'm gonna just let you go ahead and take this thing away.
Well, before I get started, I want to apologize for the face. My makeup person, called in sick today. So
Jesus Christ.
This is what we get.
This is the State of the Union we get. This is garbage, dude.
These last couple of seasons have been very trying in the sense that like I have a plan in place and everybody's expecting results right away. You have these bad NFL teams that you draft a quarterback, you expect them to produce, and you want everything to you want a playoff team in year one, year two, and with Dynasty it was great that I had lightning in a bottle when I drafted all those running backs, and it was fun. And all those running backs are more or less worthless at this point. It was, Kareem Hunt, 1 out of the 4, still doing something out there. Leonard Fournette's sharing a backfield with 8 other running backs in Tampa. You know, it was time that I needed to change my philosophy. A carpenter is only as good as his tools, and it was time that I needed to.
Woo! Sheesh. That's pretty
I
aggressive.
didn't want to, assume that I knew everything and like, oh, let me just go on a whim with all my, predictions on this guy and this guy. So I decided to take some time and, really listen to people that do this for a living. I'll use Christian as an example when he was playing Super Smash Brothers and he started watching videos and he started, studying the game and, how he ended up turning. Now he's phenomenal. Same thing with his, disc golf and watching videos and talking to other people. And, that's why the approach I wanted to take. If I expect to be successful for a long, period of time, I need to really work on my rebuild. And that starts with your running backs, your quarterbacks, and the running backs, get it for what, 3 to 5 years, and they're toast most of the time. Very
Yeah.
rare that you get a running back any longer than that. So there's no reason for me, as much as it hurts looking at DeAndre Swift and then nothing. Um, there's a good chance that the silly nannies don't take a running back this year. I'll be honest.
Wow. Breaking news here.
I'm researching the next couple of drafts. Brees Hall, someone I'm very interested in early on, but I
Nice
said
little
that about
Iowa
Chuba
State
Hubbard.
product.
Yes.
And then you also
Uh,
said that about Journey Brown, who retired. So it's looking great for
yeah,
you.
I would have said that. Well, the thing with Journey Brown, he had, I think it was like a heart condition,
Yeah, he
much
couldn't
like
play
our,
anymore.
right. He would have been my 1-1. Well, regardless
Just
of
just
Jamar
just throw
Chase
it
or
in there.
anybody else, he would have been my 1-1, and it hurts because I was really looking forward to him. I was talking to Vince about him, when he played his you know, first season. He only splashed in a few of the games towards the end, and he looked phenomenal. And
He was
he
supposed
was,
to be legit, yeah.
yeah, he was same cloth as Miles Sanders, Saquon Barkley. They're talking about that. There's a particular jump cut move that they use that they seems to be getting passed down from running back to running back, and he was the next guy. And it's unfortunate, but you
Yep,
know,
that ain't happening, unfortunately. So here we are at 1-1, and I'm intrigued. I mean, I have a couple of questions here
sure.
that I formulated for. I mean, I'm hoping this doesn't sound as much like an interrogation as I'm thinking it might, um,
Can't
but
wait.
I feel like our fans, the loyal fans that have made it 52 minutes into this podcast, we'll reward them with a couple of Alex press conference questions here.
Sure.
Um, and we'll start you off with a nice softball here. How about that? So, what players are you most excited about on your team right now, outside of DeAndre Swift and T. Higgins?
Henry Ruggs.
Oh my Jesus
I'm still
Christ!
holding out for him, and
Holy
it's
shit!
not that I
And
expect.
he's sticking to it, boys.
I'm not expecting Ruggs to be, the wide receiver one that's going to give you any kind of consistent production. When I drafted him, my idea of him, he was going to be like, great. He could be my wide receiver 3. He could be a flex wide receiver, and he can give me 15 yards a game, or he can give me 127 with a touchdown.
So he's your
And
Deshaun Jackson best ball guy.
yeah, and I'm okay with that. It's like my third, fourth wide receiver. I had no issue with that. He um, also filled in uh, that gap for in case Brian Edwards didn't pan out.
Mm-hmm.
He was my insurance. I was like, all right, the Raiders spend, you know, 2 picks on these young wide receivers who we knew were at least talented. Maybe some people felt, a certain way about Ruggs, and he fit the mold of the John Rosses of the world. I saw things a little differently. I saw games where, he was getting open with route running, and some people would disagree, and I get that. That's fine. But I liked what I saw, and I figured I covered my bases with the Raiders, and they're going to be in a division where they have to play the Chiefs twice a year. Who's going to be chucking? They're going to be chucking the ball on offense, putting up points, and the Raiders have to answer. They have no choice but to keep throwing that ball too. So they don't draft a guy like Henry Ruggs, as the first wide receiver off the board if they're not planning on giving him the ball. And no team out there, I don't care how shitty they are, is going to invest that kind of capital for a guy that's going to be a distraction for the defense while Nelson Aguilar and Darren Waller get all the targets. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So
Those
at
guys were
very
both raw too coming in, so I will back you up on that. I feel like they both needed a little time to get their shit together. And maybe this is a big sophomore bounce. You never know. It's
Yeah,
possible.
and same thing with Mims. These are all guys that I wasn't expecting year one breakouts, and the way I had my rebuild process in place, I was okay sitting on these guys for a couple of years. If I could take the chance on getting a wide receiver one, if I just was waited and was patient, then I was being like, okay. But I have no problem at this point cutting players if they're not doing a job. JJ Arcega-Whiteside, Miles Boykin. And
Hate to see
this
it.
was before I changed my philosophy on my drafting. I was just drafting these asshats. And look, that draft in particular, what did I get out of that? Nothing. Mecole Hardman, maybe something if they don't get another wide receiver, which I don't see that they don't. But I
Yeah.
just like, no more. Couldn't do it again.
So as of right now, you're very excited still about the Raiders' outlook as far as their receivers and
Well,
Mims.
yeah, the receivers with Ruggs in particular, Edwards looks like, I for the little time that he played before he got hurt again, he was roasted. I think it was the Patriots, and it was who was it, McCourty maybe? He absolutely barbecued his ass, and it was fun to watch. And I was like, if he can do that on a consistent basis and get the targets, like he could be something. I'm not going to say he's going to be a wide receiver too, even, but he's someone that I could hold on to and put in one of my flex spots eventually down the
Core
road.
player, if you will.
Yeah,
All right, that was a good answer. So I'm gonna go. We kind of actually talked a little about this earlier, so I'll just quickly mention it. But I was interested in your approach to this rookie draft. You kind of said that you might not even take a running back this year. I mean, you got 3 first-round picks. You also have 2-1. So I thought it just depends on kind of what your outlook on the team is, and I don't expect you to give away all of your sources and secrets here. But I mean, are you going BPA in this draft?
it's going to be a little bit of both. There's obviously the 3 running backs that everyone has coveted as the guys, with ETN, uh, Harris, and Javonte Williams. And then it's just kind of crapshoot with the other guys. There's one guy I like in particular, but I don't know if I have the draft picks to even acquire him, nor do I want to trade to get like a third round to grab him. So the running backs, it's fine. Landing spot obviously is going to be very important with those first 3. There's a good chance I don't take a running back first overall unless they fall in like the juiciest spot possible, and all the other guys I liked end up in like meh spots. You know, uh, so in that regards, again, I want to stick with really building up those wide receivers. So by the time I am ready to make that turn, I just need to draft a running back next year or even the year after, and then I should be ready to go. You don't need that many running backs. I feel to make a
Seems
run as
seems like
long as
most teams have
they're
3 good ones.
yeah, as long as they stay healthy. That's all you
That's a
can
whole
ask for.
nother
I
thing.
mean,
Yeah.
Sean, I mean he pulled it off, making the playoff, making the championship with Jonathan Taylor, uh, Clyde Frog, and the big slew of other running backs that no one really cares about. And he was able to pull it off, and he had the right receivers to carry him and quarterback. So that's enough of a recipe. It may not always equal success, but it at least gets you there.
Sure.
And if I feel like I have enough wide receivers to go around, I should have no problem grabbing running backs. I have a decent eye for running backs. Granted, I don't keep most of them, but I shouldn't have a problem finding a running back, whether it's early first, late first, early second. I'll get somebody. So
All
I'm
right.
pretty confident.
All right. I got a couple more questions for you here before I let you get off the hook.
Sure.
When do you think this team is going to make the playoffs?
Mm, 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 mm. Uh, my optimistic side.
Give the fans some hope.
Well, it depends how this draft goes, and I think that's what it comes down to. If I decide, hey, you know what, the running backs that I'm interested in have good landing spots, and I have those first 5 picks, if I can grab one of them and maybe grab some running back that might end up breaking out later on in the draft, I could see myself get a 5 or 6. Why not? Sure. But the important thing is those wide receivers I have now really need to step up. And that's where I'm unsure of. Like, I'd like to see him at least some promise by the end of this coming season. Obviously the beginning, but it may not be till year 3. And I'm okay with the wait on that. So
Okay.
I would say the following season, I think I could make that next step, especially if I can get a guy like a Brees Hall or maybe somebody else that comes up those dynasty rankings, towards the next draft. I can start off with that or have an established wide receiver core. We'll see if I go after quarterbacks like Trevor Lawrence, maybe Zach Wilson. Who
Ooh,
knows?
Woodward.
Who knows?
Now we're talking.
Maybe I
secrets, baby.
Maybe I get to Kyle Pitts and he ends up, producing by year 2 just consistently, and I think that's enough to make a run. So we'll see.
Interesting. All right. Second to last question here. This is just a fun question. Who's your worst 2 draft picks been in recent years? Like the ones that you just look back at and you're just like, dude, I fucking suck. Like what? Like because everybody has those. Like I'll tell you right now, like mine has always been Marcus Wheaton. I just fucked that up. It was just a mistake. It didn't work out. Hate it. Hate looking at it. Hate everything about it. Who's your guys?
Well, so we're talking about since we started this league, because you're talking about Marcus Wheaton. So if we're gonna go back that far,
you can go back as far as you want, really. But
it was so bad that I can't. I'm now like drawing a blank on his name. He was
It's not bad. You can't even
and, like I remember any other time, but now that I have to think about it,
Holy crap,
it hurts
this guy
my
sucks.
the guy that the Colts drafted when Andrew Luck was still on the team, and he went to the
The receiver?
Steelers. Yes.
Martavis Bryant? No.
No. Oh my goodness.
Went to the Steelers?
He started off on the Colts and he went to the Steelers. Yeah,
God damn it.
right. And I can't think of his name because I hate him so much.
I have no idea. When did you draft him though? What round? That might help.
It was the first round. That was the year Odell went. That's Mike Evans.
Jesus, I can't remember.
I went like Sammy Watkins. I went
How do I not remember this? I feel like this is a very notable player too.
right.
We'll have to do some research.
He was in the league not that long ago, and fuck man, I hate him. Yeah,
we got a comment. Maybe somebody's got it for us. Oh, here it is. Dante Moncrief.
Hey! Yeah, and
yeah, he sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, he. I had the mindset. I was like, well, he's with Andrew Luck. Can't be that like great. Even if he's not great,
the old Aaron Dobson special
to carry his ass, and it just never panned out. That Andrew Luck was like, peace out, and not that would have made a difference, but that really hurt the team morale. And then on top of that, to pair him with my second pick, probably would have been Mecole Hardman. Now, granted, I still have a little hope for him, but I went with that same mindset after I told myself, like, don't do that again. Because you did that with Moncrief, you're like, oh, well, he's with a good quarterback. It's equal success, right? And it hasn't worked out for Hardman so far. This is year 3, so I at least want to give him one more shot, but it's not looking good.
I was saying Arcega Whiteside might be one of your worst picks. He's not a first-round pick, but
second-round pick, and I fell into those old habits of, well, he's a big wide receiver.
Oh, trust me, that gets me. You know how that gets me going.
Yeah, right, and it just doesn't work. You can't separate, and I don't care how big you are. It's not going to be a good time for anybody. And that's the whole reason why I changed my drafting philosophy. It was Mecole Hardman, Miles Boykin, and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. It's like I can't do that
those
again.
Guys just did it to you.
Dan's having the best draft of his life, and I'm grabbing those ass hats. And it's just,
that's SpongeBob meme where they're playing outside and you're stuck in the house. It's a classic. All right, last question. What's your record going to be this year? Because you have an idea of what you're going to do in the draft. So, like, based on what you're thinking you're going to do.
Well, I can tell you what I'd like to have in the draft, but I just don't know if it's going to work. Like, I know, Vince didn't trade up to grab a wide receiver. Obviously,
probably not. No,
probably not. And Justin is really the wild card because the way his team looks, there's no reason why he shouldn't be grabbing two running backs
Yeah.
just to cover his bases. Because like even if one, doesn't produce the way we would expect, at least he's got his bases covered. But Justin doesn't really put in the time, so I don't know what he's gonna do. And
Oh.
I'm not too scared of him, to be
Oh
honest. Like
shit.
but he had opportunities in last season to really make some splash pickups in the waiver wire, and he just didn't. And there's no reason for me to think that I don't care how good of a team he has on paper, he just hasn't put it together. And
Wow.
he should take a page out of Dan's book, to be honest. Like really take a little time to, and it's not like he's doing the research. He has bad luck, but it just hasn't worked out for him. So if it's not him, then he just has the worst luck, and stay away from him. And that's all I could say
All
in
right.
that regards.
So,
But
so what's this record going to be?
record's probably gonna
That's what the fans want to know right now.
4 or 5 wins.
4 or 5 wins. Okay.
I don't think we're there yet. And like I said, if the draft doesn't go out the way it might expect, and I have plan B's and plan C's, but I may not get a running back, and I have to eat that, and that's not going to help my success this year. So you got to do what you got to do.
Are you heard it here first? 4 or 5 wins. He's confident with Henry Ruggs. This is what the fans wanted to hear. So thank you very much for sitting here and taking the questions. Out here for the fans mostly. I mean, this is a great PR move for the Silly Nannies. Having an owner and a GM that puts his face in front of the camera, makes bold statements, and who knows if he backs them up or not. But if he's out here making things interesting, that's what we're really here for. Also, like to point out his great meme on his wall there. That's just a nice touch. It's a really nice touch. Not a lot of fans would do that. Not a lot of people would do that.
The Silly Nannies strive for perfection, and sometimes that takes time. So, we get down ourselves sometimes, wondering when this is going to finally take off, and we have to look at that poster and we're like, you know what? We know what the end goal is. So, we just got to be patient, and we strive for perfection.
It's all about perfection.
It's all about perfection. It's showing up at a bar with a girl you just met and holding her purse. So
it is a classic meme, though.
Thank you.
One of the best.
That's a gift from Vince. Like the French gave the Statue of Liberty to the United States. That's my gift.
I'm surprised it's not framed yet, to be honest with you.
You know what? I've been trying to get around to that, but the Silly Nannies are going to be moving home base this fall.
Nannies are moving. They might have a brand change.
Oh, yeah, it's very possible.
You could be the Motor City something. Who knows? You could be. I mean, there's tons of options here.
Sure
so, just real quick, because we had a comment in Discord. It's from Tibbs saying, "Alex, is COVID really your reason for not knowing how to draft receivers?" You love to see that. All right, this shit talk is real. Thank you very much, Alex, for joining us. We're at about an hour and 10 minutes here, so we'll cut it off here. But thank you for joining, and really appreciate the time that you took to answer our questions. And
of course, I'm glad to be here.
We'll hopefully see you. My plan as of right now is to do some sort of extravagant draft live stream. I don't exactly have many of the great details yet, but I have ideas. Just kind of have to formulate them. But my concept is to have almost as if it's an ESPN like coverage type of deal, but just with like bringing in the GM to make a comment on their player, because we can have up to 10 people in this live stream. So
that's gonna be silly.
That would be our entire league. So I think there's a lot of upside there. So we'll see what we can do. But the draft is right around the corner. I think we're like under 2 weeks away now. Be on the lookout. We got a couple more
weekend after next. I'll be up there enjoying the draft with you.
Who knows? There might even be a Dallas draft live stream. We don't know. Ooh. Anything could happen.
That's exciting.
All right, we're logging off here. Thanks again, Alex.
All right, take care.
See you.